Hi, everybody. It's Joe Cioffi on this Monday, the 14th of May, coming up on 10 minutes to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Doing a live stream today a bit earlier. I've got a few things to do this evening. If you're on Long Island, I'm at the Smithtown Library at 7 o'clock Eastern Time for another hour and a half presentation on weather and climate and the tropics and the winter we just had and the hurricane season we might have. So you can join us. That's at the Smithtown Library in Smithtown, New York on Long Island. Now, we are continuing to watch a number of different things that are going on the bottom of the screen here. You see the profile of severe weather tonight, and we'll bring that up in just a second. We've got 3 severe thunderstorm watches at the moment that are in play. And over to my left, you have the system over Florida and the northeastern Gulf of Mexico that the Hurricane Center is continuing to write statements on in their tropical weather outlooks, which, by the way, usually don't start until June 1st, except in instances where something appears out of the ordinary, in which case they will initiate some coverage. And that's what they did yesterday, and they continue to do so today. Now, you'll notice from this the disturbed weather, and I'm going to bring that loop up a bit wider here so we can take a look at it. There is a bit of a weak, low-level circulation that is trying to develop. If you watch carefully on the visible satellite loop, you can pick out a swirl of clouds well to the west of the Florida coast and southwest of Tampa, St. Pete, and west of Naples. You can see the rotation there. Again, very weak, very broad. This is not anywhere close to becoming a tropical depression or even a subtropical depression, but it is feeding up moisture up from the Caribbean across the Florida Straits and into Florida itself and into the southeastern part of the United States. And that is going to continue, regardless of whether this becomes a tropical storm or not, or a subtropical storm. I really don't think it makes any difference. First off, there have only been 4 tropical systems coming out of the Gulf of Mexico since 1851. Thank you, Anthony Orr, for that statistic. And there have actually only been 22 named tropical storms that have developed. 22 tropical storms that have developed since 1851 in the entire Atlantic basin, and only 4 of them have become hurricanes. So we're really talking about something that doesn't happen very often, even though we have seen tropical storms in May, both last year and the year before. Pretty much most Mays, and you can go many, many years without seeing one, you wind up with nothing. Bottom line, though, is this is part of a trough. If you look also on the loop, you can see that there's a weakness there in the central Gulf of Mexico on northward, and this is creating a southerly flow from the northwest Caribbean on up into the southeastern part of the United States. And eventually, a lot of this moisture is going to feed northward and create some flash flooding situations for parts of Florida and for the southeast. And a lot of that rain is going to eventually find its way up the eastern seaboard. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this throughout the entire week, of course, and we'll see what happens. My guess is that this is the low that develops here is just going to move inland and not really cause any problems from the standpoint of any kind of wind or tides. It's really going to be more in line with regards to rain. I think that really is the big deal. Let's take a look at the severe weather tonight. And by the way, you can also see the radar over Florida. You can see the echoes here of some heavy downpours and thunderstorms on both the west and the east coast of Florida, moving northwestward. Again, around that low-level rotation that is out in the Gulf of Mexico. By the way, the Hurricane Center is only rating this as a 20% chance of developing in the next 48 hours and 30% in the next 5 days. So they've taken their numbers down just a little bit. Just to reiterate, I really don't think this is going to be a huge deal. Even if it were to become a subtropical depression, it really won't have a whole lot of time before it all moves inland. Now, here the severe weather that we're dealing with tonight across northern Virginia, West Virginia, and the severe thunderstorm watch, which is now, gradually as of 4:53 p.m. being eliminated for parts of southern Pennsylvania, but remains in effect for much of Maryland and northern Virginia. And there is some thunderstorm activity that's coming into view there. We'll bring a radar shot up in a second. And then you've got two other severe thunderstorm watches up that include Chicago and St. Louis, and they extend from lower Lake Michigan on south and west across Illinois, through Missouri, and in through eastern Kansas. So two areas that we're looking at the moment. We'll go to the east and bring up the eastern regional radar here, and you can follow this line that has formed late this afternoon into this evening. And let me just bring this up to the top. And you can see it here. It's actually a fairly impressive line of storms now that is moving through western Maryland and making its way eastward. The northern part of that line is getting frayed a little bit, but the cells are still pretty impressive as they move to the southeast. And there's probably going to be some severe thunderstorm warnings out on this if there hasn't been already. We'll watch that continuing to move to the east. Now, the other area that's in question, I'll have to bring up the wider radar view here. And you can see the second area that is moving through central Missouri now. This is not quite as well developed yet as the line in the east, but it is starting out and taking shape. So we're likely to see this area expand over the next 3 or 4 hours. And there's the eastern band that will likely peak in intensity in another couple of hours and then gradually weaken. And then, of course, you've got the area that's down in Florida rotating around the subtropical system. Not much really has changed since yesterday in terms of our overall expectations regarding the weather going forward. It really is pretty much the same idea. We talked about the fact that we have the hang on one second. I'm going to try to bring it up on the window. That's probably the best way to do this. See if we can get this going. And hang on, folks. Just give me a second here. All right, gotta try this again. Let's try this one more time. There we go. Finally getting it here. Okay, so we'll bring up the paint box and we'll show you what's happening with regards to our dilemma for this week, and that is a gradual saturation of the East Coast with tropical moisture. There's the moisture from the low, the surface low that we showed you on the loop, and of course with the Hurricane Center monitoring that. The first thing that's going to happen is later tomorrow, we do have this frontal boundary that is going to buckle northward tonight and then buckle southward again late tomorrow and tomorrow night. There's actually a bit of a warm front that we can pick out. It's probably right. Well, let me just try draw it another way here. Hang on. So we'll draw it this way. There is a bit of a warm front that's going to kind of make its way through and move through through southern and central New England during the late night, early morning hours with some showers, and that's going to put the areas from southern New England, south and west into the warm sector. Now, how much of that warm sector and how far north it gets is a big question, but this is where we are thinking that there'll be some severe weather for tomorrow. I think the best chances probably will be in this area here that I just circled, from about New York City, south and west, most of New Jersey, all of Pennsylvania, we do have the Storm Prediction Center with its indications of slight risk. Now, here's the moisture field that's with respect to the subtropical system. The NAM model has a surface low, a weak circulation off the Florida Panhandle tomorrow morning, actually right around midday. That gradually works its way inland, but all this moisture is going to be riding up the coast because we don't really have a mechanism to kick it out. In fact, when we look at the structure of the upper air, and this is the jet stream pattern for late this week, and it's actually for Saturday, the upper air jet stream pattern. You've got this big upper ridge in the Atlantic that's creating pretty much a southerly flow, as we've been saying, from the northern Caribbean all the way up the east coast of the mid-Atlantic before it turns around and heads to the northeast. So all this moisture that's down in Florida and in the subtropics will be coming up. There's a weak trough, and you can see the trough here running in the central Gulf states. It extends down from southern Illinois, from the western Ohio Valley, down to the central Gulf Coast, and that is creating a weakness to allow that moisture to move northward. The northern jet, which could, of course, come down and squash this ridge at any time, apparently is not going to be able to do that until maybe sometime next week. So until that happens, we're going to be under this continuous flow of air in the eastern part of the United States, and that just doesn't bode well for nice weather. It doesn't necessarily mean that it rains every waking minute of every day, but there will be dry periods, certainly, and on top of that, there will be some times, some periods where we will get into some showers and thunderstorms. And the first shot for that is going to be later tomorrow. Let me bring the GFS up and the NAM, and we'll take a look at that. And let me shrink this out just a little bit. Okay. So I think what we'll do is we will start with the late afternoon NAM model run, which just finished, and take a look at how it handles the severe weather prospects for tomorrow. So we'll go forward. We'll start with tonight, which really, at least at 2 o'clock this afternoon, wasn't showing too much. Here's that first line. It seems like the NAM is really underdoing this first line of thunderstorms, considering what we see on the radar. And, it flares up that second area to some degree as we go into the overnight hours, as those storms move off into Illinois. Same time, you can see that moisture with the weak circulation in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico being drawn northward. Now, here's the line for late Tuesday, and it does really rev up some strong thunderstorms. So if the warm sector can make it into southern New England, rest assured that there will be some strong thunderstorms running across southern New England through the Ohio Valley to northern New Jersey and into southeastern Pennsylvania, and then even making it to the coast. As long as the marine layer behaves itself, if it gets out of the way, there might be room for some strong thunderstorm activity. Then we wait for this moisture from the subtropical system to come up the coast as we go into the latter part of the week. And here you can see it from Thursday into Friday. It does start to bubble up. NAM's kind of having a little trouble lifting it northward, or at the very least, it's taking longer to lift it northward. But I think the threat is there. Somebody's going to get into some heavier rains as we go through the week. Just have to kind of work out the details as to exactly who gets what, when, and where. So let me come back to you guys on the board here. I know this is kind of an awkward time to do the live stream, but I really didn't have too much choice tonight given my commitments. So I figured let's get it done now and put it up there. So a good hello to everybody. Let's see. ZUK, it goes to show in a year or two of unusual weather, don't assume that something isn't going to happen. Just keep an open mind. Well, I always have an open mind when it comes to this sort of stuff. I've seen stranger things happen when you think it's not going to happen, and it does. just kind of trying to balance things and not go too ape with regards to anything with respect to the tropics, especially since the models have been, already spitting out storms that haven't really occurred. What will Boston get tomorrow? What to expect? What conditions? Well, Delvin, you got kind of a tough call for Boston because that warm sector is going to try to make it northward, but I don't know if it's going to make it all the way up to Boston. You might fall short this time around. In fact, I think you also did last time around as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't get into the warm sector. It's gonna get somewhere up into. My guess is it'll probably make it at least up into Rhode Island and interior Massachusetts. Whether it makes it up to Boston remains to be seen, and it might be a bit of a push. Severe thunderstorm risk for the Capital District tomorrow. Well, Raymond, you wonder because the frontal boundary, where it is already so far to the east that, those storms wind up revving up. You may start revving up too far east for you. I'm tending to think that the severe weather threat is going to be more to the south tomorrow than up to the north. I mean, I think there'll be some. In fact, I'm just looking, by the way, the new storm prediction centers. I'll bring this up. The Storm Prediction Center has kind of really upped its. I'm not surprised that it's done this. I was expecting that it would. Let me just. I'll bring it up front and center here so you guys can all see it. This is going to be the severe weather risk for tomorrow. So hang on one second. I think I really believe it makes sense to have it this way. Let me start another window here. So, okay, so here's the severe weather risk now for tomorrow. And the Storm Prediction Center has really expanded that marginal risk up to about Boston with a slight risk back to interior Connecticut to New York City, western Long Island, most of New Jersey except the coast, and an enhanced risk in northeastern Pennsylvania eastward. So it has Albany maybe on the northern edge of slight to enhanced. It's going to be close. It's going to be close. We'll have to see if that warm front can really kick through, and the cold front gets hung up just a little bit. That will probably cause a wider geographic coverage area of the severe weather threat. So we're certainly going to keep an eye on this. Funny TV with respect to thunderstorms in Long Island in the springtime. We know how they like to fall apart. You're just going to have to look to see if we've got any kind of wind off the ocean. That's going to argue against severe weather. But if we get more of a west wind tomorrow, if temperatures make it up into the 80s and you don't get a sea breeze, you might see these thunderstorms hold up as they approach the coast. Water temperatures still have a long way to go before the ocean becomes a smaller or even a non-factor in thunderstorms. That usually doesn't happen until sometime later in July or early in August. All right, folks, going to leave it right there as far as our weather is concerned for tonight. There'll be some more website posts on all this, so you can check that out on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. And Angry Ben's got New York City covered on nycweathernow.com. Just want to mention our participation in the Amazon Associates program, which is a program designed for this channel to earn fees by if you use the link that's provided and shop on Amazon. Amazon likes my channel better, and everybody is happy. So I just want to put that out there. If you want a good way to support my channel, you can and you shop on Amazon. Just use the Amazon link that's on the descriptor of this video, and you certainly aren't under any obligation to do so. Thanks, everybody, for being here this evening. I really appreciate it. We will see you hopefully tomorrow, although it might be late. The live stream might be a bit difficult tomorrow. We'll see how it goes, but we'll certainly give it a try. Take care.